You do not want to miss this podcast. I'm talking to Michael Sarracini, chairman of Keyspire, real estate investor, entrepreneur, and if you're in the real estate world, you know this name, and if you haven't, you got to get to know him. Hi everyone, welcome to Control and Compound. I'm Darren Mitchell, and I am super excited to introduce Michael Sarracini from Keyspire. Michael, how you doing today?
I'm great, Darren. Thanks for having me.
Michael, I've been a big fan for years. I've been a member of Keyspire, so we can talk about that in a little bit, but why don't you share with our listeners, like, how did you get started in the real estate game? Because I love your origin story, and I'd love you to share with our listeners how you first got started in the real estate world.
Yeah, it's always a great question to see where people came from, because that's how we can relate as new investors. That's how we can relate to what makes sense for our story. And a lot of people ask me that, how I get started in real estate or what my first deal was, Darren, and it's interesting because it's the business before real estate that actually failed and is what caused me to get into real estate. So it's worth thinking about, not how you got into something, but what pushed you so hard that you had to work your butt off to be successful at something. And for me, it was a business I started when I was about 19 years old, right before real estate. I started real estate around 20. And I wanted to be wealthy, and I wanted to travel, and I wanted to have impact, and I wanted to, do all of these great things. And so I did what any 19 or 20-year-old would do, is got together with some friends and started a boy band. That was the first business before real estate.
What was the boy band called?
Our boy band was called Next Element. And, you can Google it. Actually, you're going to find pictures because Scott actually put some of the footage on his show on Moving the McGillivrys. But this was before the days of YouTube, before the days of any social media. So anything that we didn't really live online. So there's not a lot of footage online back from 1999. But the lessons I learned in that business, and ultimately the losses that I got emotionally, are what caused me to do something that was going to put me in control of my future. And the boy band was pretty fun. We got together. We were 5 guys. Picture this. We lived in the same house, student rental. A few of us went to the same university, and we worked our butt off for free, which is what you often have to do when you're starting a business. You work your butt off for free. So we would learn how to sing and dance, and we would perform at like street festivals and it started like friends, little sisters' birthday parties in the backyard. We would sing and dance whenever we could perform our craft. And then we started getting booked for things like street festivals, still for free. Still, we're still not getting paid, but now we're rising up in the levels. We started getting noticed. So we started getting noticed by the newspapers and getting noticed by TV. We did some TV interviews, eventually led to a variety shows across the country where we would be in front of a bandstand in front of thousands of people performing our craft. And then it led to a record label, a record deal. We went down to Nashville to start recording our first album. We had the record label and everything. It was amazing. And it wasn't until we got back from Nashville where we were really excited, but things really started turning. We landed at the Toronto airport, and our manager, the guy from the record label, says, "All right, boys, you saw 3 studios. Go home, sleep on it, think of which one that you want to record in, and we'll call you in a few weeks and we'll get everything booked up. You guys are going to be awesome. You're going to be famous. You're going to be rich. This is going to be great." So we went back to our student rental and went back to school and working at the restaurant, everything we used to do. And 2 weeks, 3 weeks went by, no call, no big deal. He said a few weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks went by. Finally, about the 5th or 6th week, we got a phone call. And we were all huddled around this was back when phones still had answering machines. They were digital answering machines. And, you would pick up the phone and it would have a cord. And we were all huddled around the phone. And we're like, "Oh, we'll pick Studio 2. That's the one we want." And they said, "Guys, we're sorry. We are getting rid of all of our talent. We are shutting her down. And we're not doing this anymore. So good luck out there. But we're all done as a record company. We're shutting down." And I remember how devastated we were. So we worked so hard. We put in all the time. We developed our skills. We did all these things. And still, we're left back at ground zero. And that was the point, Darren, I realized that I would never let anyone else be in control of my future. I wanted to be in control of my future, not somebody else, not a record label or my employer or the government or politics or the weather. I don't want nothing to be in control of my future. So that's where me and one of my roommates, who today I still invest with, and we do Keyspire together, Scott McGilvery. We said, well, what's next? We need a business where we're in control of our future. And that's what ultimately, a few months later, led us to real estate.
Wow, that's awesome. I love the control part, because that's a common theme when I talk to business owners and real estate investors. And, what we do at Control and Compound is don't give up control of your money, right? It's in our name, control.
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurs, I think that's when they fail, is when they give up control. If you're going to believe in yourself, you got to invest in yourself and stay in control. So that's cool. So you and Scott, you're 20 years old now, 21 years, 20,
Yep.
21.
Yeah.
And you go, we should get into real estate. And, I'm assuming you were very wealthy at the time, independently wealthy, and had lots of money for a down payment.
Oh, sure. Sure. So much money. Negative $6,000 of student debt. I had some money between the couch cushions, I think. I did own a motorcycle, so that's how I got around. But yeah, no, there's no money back then. It's not.
So how'd you get your first property?
So the first property, we had been looking for many, many months, and it took us about 8 months to build our initial team, our realtor, our mortgage broker, our accountant, and our lawyer, this core team, in order to make the transaction happen. And so we were looking, and finally we found a property, and it had 3 bedrooms and an unfinished basement. And we looked at it and we said, well, what if we, walking around the unfinished basement, we said, well, what if we put some bedrooms in here? Instead of renting it as a 3-bedroom, we could rent it as a 5-bedroom or 6-bedroom. And so we ended up buying that property. I think it was in the range of $160,000. So $160,000. This is back in the year 2000. I mean, that sounds not like a lot of money right now, Darren, but that was a lot of money back in the year 2000, right? That's no different than 1.2 million today. So sometimes people say, oh, 160,000. No wonder you guys got started so easy. But you got to remember, that was just as much money today as a property is, right? So we found this property, and we ended up buying it with 5% down, because that was the policies at the time. The banks were doing 5% down. And that was in the range of $8,000 plus closing costs, about $10,000, we'll say. So $10,000 down to close on this property, which, again, a lot of money back in the year 2000. But we got that money through the only OPM source that we could get access to. We couldn't get extra lending or financing. We didn't have any money. But we realized that the week later, we realized that our student loans had just come in. And we said, oh my goodness, we got these student loans. Look at this. We got like an extra $6,000 each in our bank account. And then we held up another piece of paper that said, man, how are we going to come up with $10,000 for a down payment? And it was like almost like this funny scene at a Saturday Night Live where we're trying to figure it out, and then it just clicked. And one of us, I don't remember who, but I'm gonna say I came up with the idea, but I don't really know who. One of us said, well, why don't we just use a student loan for the down payment? Our student loan is going to go to housing costs anyway. We could work at the restaurant to pay for our tuition and our beer money and all those other great things that we're going to do. And we'll just use this. And that was our first lesson, without even realizing it, with OPM, other people's money. We used our loan, our interest-free loan, in order to buy the property.
Wow. So what's the bank say when a couple 20-year-olds walk in and say, hey, we'd like to buy this 3-bedroom / 5-bedroom house?
The bank says no way. So we had to find another piece of the puzzle, which is we had to get someone co-signing on the financing. So that's often a really important piece, is to be able to qualify for financing. So you can have the down payment, you can have the business plan. We knew that we could renovate the properties and fix them up for about $25,000, and the property would be worth more than that. But we just couldn't qualify for financing. So we convinced my dad, made an offer to my dad to co-sign for us, and said we'd split some of the profits, bring him in as a partner. And my dad ended up saying, no, I'll do it for free. I want to help you out. And so my dad ended up co-signing on that first loan, which is how we got the mortgage from the bank for maybe about $150,000 or $140,000. But even if he didn't do it, if it wasn't my dad and it wasn't being generous, it can still happen by cutting in that person as a partner. We've had some Keyspire members, Darren, that have been super creative, and they've got people to co-sign on the financing, and they'll say, we'll pay you 30% of cash flow for 3 years as a fee in order for you just to co-sign. So they got this royalty, or this sort of not an annuity because it was going forever, but they had like this 3 to 5 year royalty just by being clever. And the person that co-signs is, all right, I get to co-sign. I get this money for just co-signing. And my risk is if they end up not paying their bills, I get the property because I'm the one that's co-signing on it. I'm the one that's taking on that risk. So anyway, it's a really cool way to buy that first property. So that's how we ended up with that first property, OPM, and then clever co-signing.
So you had the team, you had the formula, and then you said, hey, look, let's scale. I mean, the word we'd use today is scale. Back then, I'm sure it was a different word, but how do we do this over and over and over again?
That was the plan, and we had no idea where to even start doing that. So we just focused on one step at a time. I see a lot of investors that are on their first property and they're getting ahead of themselves trying to be like, I want to buy 5 and 10 and 20. Certainly in this business, it's like a chess game. You do have to think a few moves apart. You got to set up your financing properly for your next couple properties. But in business and in life, and certainly in real estate, it's even more important to just focus on getting the job done today and now. So we focused on getting the job done on that property. And the way that we probably didn't set up the financing right, we didn't know what we were doing. We said, we got to get this done. So we went in, we did all the renovations ourselves. We went to the Home Depot University on Sunday morning after a Saturday night of partying. We would get up early when everyone was sleeping and go to learn how to install laminate flooring, click flooring, and learn how to drywall a wall and learn how to do these simple things. And so we did all of the renovations ourselves. And with that, we ended up increasing the value to it was around $190,000 was the after repair value. So what we did next was the defining moment that answers your question on how we scale. Our initial reaction was to do what they do on all the TV shows. Certainly at the time, all these flipping shows were out. Buy a property, you increase it, and you flip it, and you get a big paycheck. So we went back to our mortgage broker. We didn't know who to go to. We said, okay, we did all this work on the property. Went to the realtor and the mortgage broker. Went to the realtor, said, we want to sell it. They're like, no problem, we'll list it. So we went to the mortgage broker to say, we're going to list this property. How does it work? Do we have any penalties? We heard something about penalties. So he says to us, he says, tell me about the property. We said, okay, here's what we did. We bought it. We put in all this time and effort and all this work, and we renovated it. It's like brand new. It's beautiful. And then we screened tenants, and we got the best tenants in there, and they want to stay for 4 years. And this thing cash flows $1,000 a month. Back then, it cash flowed $1,000 a month. That was not unreasonable. And it's such an awesome property for a buyer, and we're going to sell it. Help us sell it. He said, listen to what you guys are saying. Why would you ever want to sell what you just described to me? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, it's an awesome property. You just renovated. It doesn't need maintenance for 5 to 7 years. You got tenants in. They're cash flowing. They're there for years. And you want to sell that? He says, you keep it. I'm like, what? You keep it. What we'll do is we'll refinance it. I said, refinance it? What does that mean? No idea, right? What that means. Anyone watching, Darren, right now is probably leaps and bounds ahead of where I was when I started in that first property. He said, we refinance it. We get an appraisal at the new value after you've improved it. And then whatever the difference is, we can go up 80% loan to value. We go 80% loan to value of the new value. Whatever the difference is between 80% loan to value and what you owe on it today is cash I can write you a check for. And we did the math. It turns out if we were to flip the property and pay closing costs and realtor fees and taxes, or we were to flip it to ourselves, we got about the same check. The only difference is by flipping it to ourselves, we got to keep 20% equity in the property. Basically, that 20% would have gone to fees. So either we pay it to fees and feed the neighborhood, or we keep that equity and we keep that property and we keep it cash flowing. So it's exactly what we did. Refinance, got the check, got a cash flowing property, and now with that check, we could do it over and over again. And I'll finish this thought, Darren. When people ask me how I came up with the first 20 down payments for my first 20 properties, I tell them, I said, I didn't come up with 20 down payments. I came up with one down payment and I used it 20 times.
That's amazing. That is so cool. So fast forward now almost 25 years in the real estate business. You've been in other successful in other businesses as well. Everyone thinks, oh, well, this time it's different. This time it's different. People thought that in 2000. People thought that in 2008. But a lot of changes going on in the past year or so in the real estate world. What do you see as the top 3 challenges that real estate investors are facing today in today's environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's what that's what we want to keep an eye on is where people are struggling. Certainly with Keyspire, our job is to solve real estate investors' problems. Our mission is to put people in control of their future. So we have our eye on all the time the problems that people are having, the major challenges they're having. And here's the biggest challenges that people are having in the marketplace right now is lack of inventory. So lack of finding good properties that either cash flow or meet their ROI, according to the 4 Ways to Win, which is a proprietary Keyspire tool that we use. They do the 4 Ways to Win, and they're having trouble finding inventory, finding properties. So that's challenge number 1. Challenge number 2 is building a good team. It seems like between the year 2000 and today, everybody became a realtor. Everybody became a mortgage broker. And so, sometimes it's funny when I see like a bus ad with a realtor and it says top 1% in the country. I mean, that's a great accomplishment. But really what's happening is 99% of realtors aren't really doing anything. So if you do a couple transactions a year, you're probably the top 1%. Realtors, don't kill me for this one, but more of a fun way to look at it. But everyone's become a realtor. Everybody's become a mortgage broker. So who do you know who to turn to? Who can actually be the right team for you? So the second issue and challenge people have is finding the right team. And then the third challenge people are having, this really came out of the pandemic, is fragmented knowledge. What's happened is when we had the pandemic, so before the pandemic, we used to do live seminars, live events in a venue. And we would do over 150 a year. Now that's a very expensive business to run. It's very costly. You need to be well funded by things like real estate in order to do that. So the barriers to entry were high. Not a lot of people were doing it. After COVID or during the pandemic, all those events got shut down. So anybody with a camera and a YouTube account could be a real estate expert. So you saw all of these underground real estate experts start popping up, real estate coaches start popping up. And what that created was this ecosystem in YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, wherever else everyone's getting their real estate advice, which is wild, by the way, to get your real estate advice from TikTok or YouTube. Imagine, Darren, someone tried to set up a control and compound style policy just by watching some videos, right? It doesn't work. Trying to be a dentist with some YouTube videos doesn't work. So the problem is people are watching these videos and they don't have, it's not cohesive. There's no real strategy. The tactics kind of contradict each other. And that's the best case scenario. They're confused and they do nothing. The worst case scenario is they take free advice and they go and they try to do real estate investing with this free advice, this fragmented knowledge. And what we're seeing is a lot more real estate investors losing money because they're not getting educated properly, because they're not going through the right system. They don't have the right community or the right tools. So what we do at Keyspire has become even more important after the pandemic with all this underground education, because we defragment all the knowledge. We bring it all in one place. So those are the top 3 challenges: inventory, team, and fragmented knowledge.
Wow, that's a great explanation, because you certainly, 5 years ago, you didn't hear about people losing money in real estate like you do today. It's a different environment, and there's firms going under, and not all great news, but there's got to be some great news out there in the real estate world. Where do you see the opportunities in the marketplace today and going forward for investors?
Yeah, that is the best next question, because the opposite of challenges and obstacles is opportunities. Right. And we know that in terms of, we're in the same mastermind groups as well. So we know that whenever there's a challenge or an obstacle or a barrier, it stops 95% of people. And those people that get through it, it creates an opportunity for everybody else. So the opportunities in the marketplace come today in terms of the fact that the volume of transactions are very low. So not a lot of people are buying and selling. There's not a lot of properties moving. And in particular, there's not a lot of people buying. A lot of people are on pause right now. The interest rates are high, even though they've come down over the last couple meetings. They're higher than they've been for 10 years, and that really freaks people out. So when people are freaked out, they don't buy. With the high interest rates, the properties don't cash flow like they used to. So finding a good property today becomes a lot more difficult. So these sound like challenges, but they're opportunities, because say you were to buy a property today at today's interest rates, and it doesn't cash flow very well today. But if the interest rates dropped, it would cash flow really well, which is usually the case, because as the interest rates drop, your payment will drop. So if you lock in on the price today, 6 months or 18 months from now, when interest rates start to stabilize down, They're probably never going to go down to where they were at like 0% at some point, but they're going to stabilize down. When they start to stabilize down, that will put, two things will happen. There'll be an upward pressure for the housing prices, causing an increase in your value, more likely to have an increase than a decrease as interest rates go down. And then as interest rates go down, your cash flow will go up if you're on a variable payment. So not only will the value of your property go up and the cash flow go up, but if you buy in 16 or 18 months, you're buying at that elevated price that the interest rates bring. And so then your cash flow will go down a little bit because the value is higher. So what we say at Keyspire is marry the price and date the rate. When you buy the price, you marry it. That's the price you got into forever until you sell the property. But you're going to date the rate. The rate's going to change. It's going to go up and down, in and out. So you really want to make sure that you buy when the prices are right, not when the rates are right, because the rates will change. That's opportunity number one, is the fact that buying today, there's a much more probability that things will get better for your property than they will get worse for your property.
So let's dig into some more opportunities. And then we've talked about Keyspire, mentioned it a few times. I want to finish on opportunities and then dig into Keyspire, because for some of the people listening, they're going to, what is this Keyspire they keep referring to? So anything else on opportunities before we dig into Keyspire?
Yeah, there's another opportunity I'll touch on quickly. I'm going to expand on this at the summit because it's a really cool macroeconomic perfect storm. So macroeconomics means what are the economics of the economy, the bigger economy. It's not microeconomics, which is like, business economics and cost per unit. So there's some really interesting macroeconomic things happening. I'm going to speak specifically to Canada. We have had a crazy immigration over the last couple of years. I think everyone's seen these headlines. Not that I want you to be a headline investor, but the facts are that we've had so much immigration, millions of people. Canada's over 41 million people or so now in population. At the same time of this population increase, we've had a restriction of housing supply, both of what I just talked about in point A, less people are selling, but also less builders are building. Because of the pandemic, it put an uncertainty on all the building costs. So builders about 2 years ago had this moment where they just paused, those that could pause. The other ones went out of business, and then a third group just kept building at a loss because they had to pay their staff. So with less houses coming online, both on the resale and on the building side, and the population increase, you've got your classic and very easy to understand supply and demand problem, which means that the supply is low and the demand is high. When you have a supply low and the demand high in macroeconomics, that eases up prices. So things become more expensive, right? That makes sense for everybody. If you have 4 bags of coffee and 10 people want to buy a bag of coffee, then that's going to push the price up because you have a lower supply than you do demand. They're not building units right now in places like downtown Toronto, not like they used to. And the stats, I remember someone in my speaker series gave me the stats, so I won't misquote them, but it is it's overwhelmingly lopsided in terms of how many people are coming into the country over the next 5 years, and how many homes we're actually building, condos, single detached homes. So why is that an opportunity? Well, supply and demand, number one, upwards pressure on housing. You combine the supply and demand with interest rates stabilizing lower, you have even double upwards pressure on housing. And if you're an income property investor, like I like to be, and like a lot of our members, is all of these people that need a place to live, they can't buy a place to live because of all this upward pressure. So what do they have to do? Rent. They're going to rent a place to live. So we're going to see rental housing demand go through the roof over the next 5 years as all of these pieces start to be put into place.
Yeah, and to your point, if everybody wants to rent, what's that's going to do to the price you're going to be able to charge for renting a new property or a property you buy?
Yeah, you got the same thing happening in with rental properties. You've got upwards pressure on the rental property price. I've already heard the government, some of the political parties are talking about restricting immigration in the coming years to try and equalize this issue, which I believe it is an issue. I think we got a little carried away with immigration. Immigration is a great thing for Canada. It's necessary. We don't make enough babies here to support our GDP. So we need immigration versus somewhere like the US, where if there was no immigration in the US, last I saw, they're making enough babies in order to support their GDP. We need the immigration here, but just what's happened over the last 36 months is just a little out of control.
Yeah.
And we want to be in control.
Yeah. a little overdone. And even if they stop it now, just to house the people that have already come in, we've got years and years and years for the housing construction to catch up if it ever does. So we're in no fear of I don't think of a price drop with the amount of people looking for a place to live. Okay, so let's dig into Keyspire. We keep mentioning Keyspire. Give us the overview of Keyspire. How long has Keyspire been around? What do you guys do? And tell us about what upcoming events you have.
Yeah, Scott and I started Keyspire back in 2007 when we were filming the TV show Income Property. So we were filming the show Income Property, and we realized how many questions people had. They couldn't fit in a 22-minute episode about how do I find a good contractor? How do I get financing? What type of renovations do I do? How do I analyze a property? All of these questions were coming in. And so we said, you know what? We need a better way to educate people. The show is an amazing way to, show people how it's done and kind of what's being done. Not how it's done, but what's being done. We need a deep dive. We need to, dig in deeper for people. So we started Keyspire to do live events, online education. This is 2007, before online education was even a thing. So I'm like, here's what I picture. One day you're going to be able to go onto your computer and, all right, get this, you're going to be able to watch a video from anywhere in the world. And there's going to be all these courses and we can put them there and film these videos. And so that was my vision in 2007. And I don't think there was anything like it, maybe one or two, massive websites that might have been doing it. I don't even think the universities had this down pat. But now, as we know, online education is everywhere, right? Like it's a standard. But we wanted to be able to educate people through the online education, the live events, and coaching. We wanted to be able to do one-on-one coaching. We wanted to be able to create coaching groups. And so that's why we created Keyspire. And that was 2007. 2010, we officially launched. In 2024 while we're chatting. So I guess that's 14 to 17 years we've been around now. We've impacted hundreds of thousands of people across Canada and the US. We've coached over 10,000 people, generated hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're just getting started. We're having a lot of fun. And, our core of what we want to do, Darren, is our mastermind program. We've got a great mastermind program where our groups meet regularly. They learn new skills, learn new tools, practice with each other in their mastermind group before they go out and practice in the real world, because we want to increase control and reduce risk.
I love it. And for anyone that's been to a Keyspire Summit, they're just absolutely amazing, the education. But the Keyspire Summits have always been, or for the last number of years I've been involved, for Keyspire members. Now you're about to open it up to the world. Tell us about why you opened it up and what event that we're both going to be at here end of September.
Yeah, that's a great question. So we've done 39 Keyspire Investor Summits. We're the country's leading conference. We've done this so many times, more than any other conference out there. And it's only been available to members. So what that means is you could only get access to the Investor Summit if you were to enroll in a coaching program with Keyspire, a one-on-one coaching program or a mastermind coaching program. So if you had to enroll into a coaching program in order to get access to the summit, and that had its advantages. It was nice. We were kind of a smaller, intimate group. By smaller, intimate, I mean 600-700 people per summit, a few times a year. But we kept getting requests for people to bring their friends, their family. They're like, how do I get people in at a lower ticket price? How do I get people in to see what is happening, to really engage with this culture of Keyspire that don't necessarily want a full coaching package or don't want to be part of a mastermind community? Which I don't know why, Darren, but there's people out there that don't want to be part of a mastermind community. And so we've been working on this for 18 months, and we said, let's do this super summit. Let's do this for our 40th anniversary. I guess 40th edition, because anniversary would imply a year. For our 40th edition of the Investor Summit, we said, let's open it to the public. So we opened it to the public. Then we said, let's get some amazing celebrities there. So we got Shaquille O'Neal coming. We got these amazing speakers. We got Peter and Paige from Prime TV's Lux Listings. We got Deb and Scott from HGTV, and a number of other speakers from television and from other different real estate expert environments. And then we said, let's give some away for free. So we actually gave some tickets away for free as our thank you to the community, just for supporting Keyspire for so many years. As our value add to the community, we give some tickets away for free. We also have VIP tickets. We have platinum tickets. Those are completely sold out. And so we got all these tickets, like a choose your experience, you know? If you want to just if you want to stand and just watch some presentations, you can get the free ticket. If you want the full platinum experience with dinner on Saturday night, the party on Friday night, lunches every day, intimate, conversations with the speakers, then you go platinum. And so that's the idea of the summit. We want to just open it up to more people and give back to the community a little bit.
So if someone's attending this summit for the first Keyspire summit, what are they going to learn? What's the biggest takeaway they're going to come with that saying, wow, I'm so thankful I went. What are they going to take away from this summit?
Yeah, the summit is designed very intentionally. So every session, every presentation, every sponsor, every exhibitor is all designed with three things in mind. Number one, we want to help people build their team because that's one of the main problems people are having. Number two, we want to help with inventory. How do I find good properties out there? Number three, fragmented knowledge. We wanted to make sure that we can consolidate the knowledge so that people leave with a strategy on how to build a portfolio and then all the individual tactics about what to do next. And the fourth thing I would say, so those are the three challenges people having. We've oriented around those three challenges. And number four, we want people to know what to do next. So we're going to have next step sessions so people know exactly what to do coming out of the summit.
All right. So it's September 27th, 8th, and 9th?
27, 28, 29 in Mississauga at the International Center.
And are there still tickets available?
Platinum are sold out, but there are still Prime Plus and VIP tickets available.
Okay, we're going to put a link in the show notes for anyone that's listening. I encourage all of you to attend. This is going to be a huge event. It'll be the largest real estate event, certainly this year in Canada. And yours truly will be speaking as well. So I look forward to seeing your listeners. Anything else, Michael, before we wrap up?
I was just going to say, I want everyone to know that Darren's going to be there speaking. And I've seen Darren do his presentation, and it gets better every time. But he's going to be on the main stage. It's going to be freaking awesome. So if you've been watching and following Darren's podcast and you have not seen him speak live, you've got to come. Even just come and see him. You got to come and just watch him and watch what he does because it's absolutely amazing how he's taken. Darren, you've taken something that's perceived as so commoditized a service, and you've completely uniquitized it. You've created it for business owners and real estate investors like I've never seen done before. The last time you came to our group, Darren, somebody said, I've had 10 people give me a presentation on this topic. I never understood it once. After Darren did that for 45 minutes, I now know exactly what I got to do. So I'll share that with you. That's what somebody said last time to me in private. So you got to see Darren. If you haven't seen him speak, come and see him speak. Watch the presentation. It's going to be awesome.
Thank you, Michael. I appreciate it. All right, that's it. Check out the Keyspire event in the show notes below. Thanks, Michael. Have a great day. Thanks for watching this episode of Control and Compound. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that bell button so you never miss a new episode. And if you're ready to learn more, head to our website, controlandcompound.com. The link's below.